Hello, everybody. My name is Tamara Bartmus with Lightsome Living. I'm excited to talk about this Aries full moon during our Libra season because it has a lot to offer, especially because the North Node has been moving through Aries. It's just a reminder of how important this lesson is to learn how to develop our sense of self. So as we begin, I want to pull up my screen. There we go. And let's walk through some of the highlights of this Aries full moon. What we can expect, well, we're going to have the full moon be at its apex at October 17th, Thursday at 24 degrees, 35 minutes. That's 5:26 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time for me. Wherever you are, it will be in that time frame for you. Some of the key points to highlight the aspects that are going on. We have this full moon conjunct Chiron in Aries. We have a cardinal grand cross going on. We have Venus in Scorpio at 29 degrees, which is the ruler of Libra. And we also have Mars in Mars in Cancer at 22 degrees, which is the ruler of Aries. And then we have an easy opposition apex with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. So we're going to talk about all these because they all play a part in this story of what the full moon is really exposing for ourselves. So when we look at let me move this around on my screen. The thing I want to start with first is this moon in Aries. So when a moon is in Aries, a moon is very much tied to the past and to emotional security. And so when they don't feel emotionally secure, the moon can sort of begin expressing itself really direct, really in passionate ways and strong ways. And it can become, this very interesting paradox or spectrum of expression. And that's, again, a really important tip for you to realize is that you want to integrate these emotions. You don't need to let them just sit and stir. You actually need to move your body or tap into your body to help you integrate these emotions, whether that's stretching or working out or just moving your body, like getting in tune with it can help you integrate and metabolize these emotions. And this is really important because Chiron right now is showing up right conjunct the moon in Aries. Chiron is this wounded part of ourselves where it really is exposing the wound of lack of self-love or where we might not trust ourselves. And that can really play a part in the emotions that we feel and how we express that outside of ourselves. Sometimes we take our emotions and we project them onto other people and we become really strong and maybe rude and really like trying to find out who we are and how we can feel ourselves. It's sort of like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum, all right? That might be one of the ways that this Aries full moon can be expressed. Another more positive way might be to channel that passion, know how to harness it, and to really lean in and have the courage to show up as yourself, the courage to love yourself, to trust yourself, and take action in that. Now, some of you might have learned these lessons already, and so you might not have this dynamic show up in your experience with this full moon. Maybe your opportunity with Chiron conjunct this full moon is really to help others break their own patterns of lack of self-love or self-trust, where they might be feeling where you can help them point out where they need to take action so that they can create balance again in their life. So whatever that looks like for you, maybe you see that for another person, maybe somebody can point it out for you. But again, this Chiron is a great tool to help us actually deal with the wounds that can help us become more confident of an individual and stronger in our sense of self. All right, so let's talk about, again, excuse me, we'll talk about the rulership here. We have the ruler of Aries is Mars, and Mars is in Cancer, and the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So you see this mutual reception going on between Mars and the moon in Aries and Cancer creates an interesting dynamic where this lesson, again, that might be showing up for us is around emotional safety. Excuse me, a safety to be ourselves. Um, Sometimes this is really hard where we feel very vulnerable, and we have put up walls to protect ourselves from feeling that vulnerability again. And what the Mars can do for us in this full moon is actually help us have the courage to heal this, the courage to heal, the courage to feel what needs to be felt, so we can actually have that heart open again, those connections and those relationships healed, and be able to utilize this courage for actually creating healing in our life experience. Sometimes when we get so passionate about protecting people or protecting ourselves, we can actually restrict our courage and like hold it down and say, we're actually not going to really embrace or live life, because it's all about protecting ourselves from the wounds that life can present. So again, this interesting paradox that we need to hold space for and just be considerate of and compassionate for these very vulnerable parts of ourselves that need to also be felt and healed. Now, the other ruler going on would be this Venus in Scorpio at 29 degrees. So we have Venus is the ruler of Libra. And when a planet's at 29 degrees, it definitely shows some deep karmic tendencies that might need some wounds, especially when it comes to sexual or trust or shadows or just secrets, things that we don't want to see. And when it comes to Venus here, it is really the power of exposing the shadows, of releasing, of letting go and transforming them so that we can show up in our relationships even better and more healed. So again, we have this interesting dynamic of saying, learn how to be emotionally safe, emotionally vulnerable, feel your things, feel your feelings so that you can show up in your relationships better. And then again, the reminder that your honesty and humbly humility and being able to see what you need to see, what needs the shadows that need to be addressed, so that you again can show up in the relationships and bring harmony to this axis of self and others, and bringing healthy parts of ourselves into the relationship so that we are partnered together in that in a beautiful way. Part of this full moon is a good reminder that 6 months ago there was the Aries new moon, and on new moons I find that we make intentions for an integration of our emotional self and our physical self, or our subconscious and our conscious self, and that integration happens on the new moon. As we are now 6 months out from that new moon, we are at the Aries full moon, and this full moon is a reminder of how much have you grown in the last 6 months. When you reflect on that time period, what have you seen change in your relationship with who you are? Do you feel that you have more self-love and trust of yourself? Are you seeing things a little bit more clearly that's helping you show up honest with yourself and more courageous in your pursuits of life? And how is that impacting the relationships in your life as you make those shifts and changes? The other thing that I want to highlight is the Cardinal Grand Cross that is happening. It's creating a lot of tension in things like ourselves and our relationships, our work and our home. So if you felt pulled in all those directions, that tension is intentional, it's purposeful, because it helps us see, sort of get very uncomfortable so that we can see what really needs to shift and change. And instead of playing into the tension, like feeling like a chicken with its head cut off, running around trying to do all the things, it is an invitation to come back to center, to remember who you are, because this is a cardinal grand cross, and cardinal hits all these core aspects of our life, like I was saying, self, others, relation, home, and work, these very dominant energies in our life. It's a good reminder of like, am I building a life that is based off of who I am? Am I being true to myself, or am I really just going with the flow and the crazy winds that are around me? If you think of a tornado, we want, instead of being caught up in the winds of the tornado around us, we want to come into the eye of that and be still and be able to reflect and tie into divine wisdom in knowing what needs our attention and focus and our priority, so that we can make action happen from that place of centeredness versus feeling like pulled in all the different directions. So it's a beautiful opportunity to lean into that cardinal grand cross for your own whole growth, a whole sense of yourself. The reason I want to point this out, there is with this full moon what is called an easy opposition, where the sun trines Jupiter retrograde and the moon sextiles Jupiter retrograde. And in this position, this Jupiter retrograde gets to be sort of a highlight point of the full moon chart to remind us what is there to be learned. Now, when Jupiter goes retrograde, it really brings out some Piscean themes and Piscean storylines. And that means that we're going within and examining our inner spiritual knowledge, beliefs, and ideals that need to be sort of reevaluated before we can project them out into society, which is Jupiter ruling Sagittarius. It does that in an outward way, but when it's retrograde, it goes inward in a Piscean way. And because it's in Gemini, it really is this invitation of, are you gathering the information? Are you learning? Are you building the relationships and the connections that are helping you explore who you are and your spiritual foundations to help you know how to show up in these Sagittarian themes once Jupiter goes direct, which would be, how do you show up in society? How do you show up with morality or ethics or even your religion function, your faith? So again, this Jupiter retrograde is the reflective time. It's the time to go inside, gather information, learn it all, or learn a new bunch of it so that you can then bring that into your spiritual practices. And again, this is influencing everything that's going on in Pisces. We've had Saturn here for a while retrograde now, and we've had Neptune here for a while retrograde. These again have the similar theme of, are you doing the spiritual work? Are you connected to your spiritual source? Are you really leaning in and reminding yourself of who you are on a spiritual level? Because that spiritual information is going to impact how you process and work through this cardinal grand cross. So just a beautiful reminder again of the importance of the spiritual work, but also integrating on a physical level and into our daily life, how we show up in our work, how we show up in our relationships, how we show up in our homes, how we manage our home or home of origin relationships. All of that is part of this journey. So as you do that, I do have a tool that I recommend for you to support you through this. It is coriander essential oil. This helps to really lean into being true to yourself. Sometimes in relationships or in these dynamics of home, family, work, and stuff, we get caught up in people pleasing to the expense of our own self needs, and we sort of disconnect with what we need, and it's all about everybody else. So coriander helps us really return to ourselves and remind ourselves that, hey, maybe it's not a bad thing to stand up for myself, to know that it's okay to be different, to stand out instead of always just trying to fit in, to have the courage to be aligned to your true spiritual knowledge of who you are and then how that shows up in your life. Also learning how to trust your unique gifts, that your gifts as an individual can impact your home and family. It can impact your work. It can impact your relationship. So leaning into learning and developing your own unique gifts, and then having the courage to face those feelings that sometimes we just want to shove under a rug, or anything that is in the past that is being presented as needing integration, any kind of self-doubt that's making you feel not very confident in yourself. These things get to be seen and addressed and paid attention to. So when you use coriander essential oil, I would recommend that you use it topically. Well, you can use it all three ways. You can use it in the diffuser with any other oil, maybe some citrus or florals, might smell really refreshing and good. You can put it on your skin with some carrier oil, just a drop or two with some jojoba on your face is wonderful, on your chest, or on your hands as you meditate and deep breathe. It can also be taken in a capsule because it's wonderful support for the digestive system as well. So however you feel drawn to utilize it, I would encourage you to utilize it during this full moon portal. So we have about 2.5 days before the full moon and 2.5 days after that. We also have, for people who want to dive into essential oils, excuse me, for their signs. There's lots of ways to use essential oils for all the different signs of the chart, for the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual layers of all these different aspects of ourselves. We all have all the 12 signs of the zodiac. And so learning how to support those different parts of ourselves with essential oils is a wonderful way of integrating and utilizing nature to support us in this transformational and healing process. So I hope that as you go through this Aries full moon, you are able to make time for yourself, really connecting to your body, really utilizing your body to teach you, to show you what you can do to move forward and what this next space of growth is. And now one thing I will highlight is that part of this Cardinal Grand Cross was that Pluto is at 29 degrees, I think 30 something minutes, and it is on its way out of Capricorn. We won't see Pluto again in Capricorn for the rest of our life. And there's a part of me that's like, hallelujah, thank you. And a part of me is also really sad because this has been a very transformative 15 years. If you look back on your life in the last 15 years, what has changed in your goals and your aspirations? How have you developed greater self-discipline, or how else would I say it? Personal responsibility. How are you really claiming and taking ownership of your life? If you can, one of the litmus tests that I really like is if you can fall into your bed at night with that sweet satisfaction of a hard day's work, knowing that you are building your dreams, that might be the sign that you're on the path of purpose for yourself. If you fall into bed without that sense of feeling, even though it might have been hard, but life can be hard, but that satisfaction really does say, hey, you're on the right path. If you don't have that sense of satisfaction, maybe this path isn't the right path to consider and pursue. Just something to consider. I'm not here to tell you right or wrong for your personal growth or lessons, but something to chew on and think about, hey, is this the right path that I'm building a foundation or a future on? Because that plays all into your whole life experience and your personal growth. So I hope that you find a wonderful healing, restorative, and yet insightful full moon, because there's a lot of tension in the air. Make sure you integrate it with some body movement and take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.